Hello and welcome to session 2. This is the leader in adult care, and we're going to start looking at roles and responsibilities. So within here, under roles and responsibilities on the standard, it lists some of the things in which we need to be looking at. So we need to understand about statutory frameworks, codes of practices, about delivering safe care. So that's looking at CQC requirements, single inspection framework. We're going to look at systems and processes to ensure compliance. We look at some principles of risk management, assessment and outcomes, and outcome-based practices, principles for underpinning theories around change management approaches and tools, legislative frameworks, and then theories and models that underpin performance appraisals, including disciplinary procedures. So that's just looking at the responsibilities there. Now, where we kind of differ in this program is you have an on-program diploma, and that's your theme 1, which is leadership and management roles and responsibilities. So the standard wants us to cover this bit. And what I've done there for you, each week as we go through it, I will upload the books. So we're creating new reading materials as well to kind of take into account the standards. So when you're getting ready for your EPA, your endpoint assessment, you've understood the standards, but equally the online learning for the diploma. And yes, yeah, I know what you're thinking, oh, this sounds all a bit much. There are absolute crossovers, so you're going to be learning it in both places, so don't worry about that. So here you can see the adult leader tasks and responsibilities. I've given you the table of content. This is what we've just discussed. And then as we go through it, look, here's a reading book for you. You can download that, read that, and it just runs through the stuff for your standards. So hopefully keeping everything nice and simple for the standards. So let's have a look at your theme 1. So theme 1 looks at those roles and responsibilities. We're going to look at leadership and management in adult care, which is your first unit. And again, what we will then do next week is then look at team leadership in adult care and then resource management in adult care. So those 3 together kind of cover some of that crossover. Great. So let's have a look then, and let's start to dive into your training. So within unit 1, you need to analyze key theories of leadership and management. And here, what we've done on this page, I've listed you lots of key theories in leadership and management. So you've got your trait theory, behavioral theories, right through to transformational, transactional. You don't need to learn all of these. You don't need to have them all off the top of your head. The one that I think is most relevant to you within your services, within health and social care, is definitely transformational and transactional leadership. They're very contemporary with the NHS. They're very contemporary within health and social care. So just looking at transformational leadership, looking at transformational leaders are inspiring. They motivate their followers by fostering shared visions, encouraging innovation and promoting personal development. Now, this week's hot topic, I looked at 20 ways of inspiring your workforce, so this culture of learning. And this week, funny enough, in another standard that I'm teaching, the level 7 senior leader, we covered mission, shared values, culture and visions. And actually it leads into this quite nicely, a very similar theme, which is actually understanding your home's mission statement, values, and this culture of continual learning, continual quality improvement. So having those shared values, having those shared visions and that mission will form transformational leadership. So transactional leadership, though, focuses on managing tasks. So This is looking at a set of KPIs, key business indicators, or KPIs, key performance indicators. And it's a real emphasis on managing tasks. So this is more of a management style than it's a leadership style. But I think transformational leaders are definitely leaders. It takes somebody to have courage, commitment, a vision, innovation to be transformational. Transactional are generally people that like to just follow process. They like to know what they need to be doing. They like to have process. So when we analyze, or when you analyze this as a question, it's also going to ask you to analyze key theories of leadership and management. What I would be expecting to see here is that you're going to pick two, like I've just done. You're going to talk about them, and then you're going to kind of conclude which one you use. Lovely. So 1.2 then looks at analysing key theories that can provide valuable insight into understand how organisations are led and managed. Again, looking at different theories in both leadership and management. So we start here where we look at focus and purpose. So leadership looks at primary concerns as shared visions, inspiring, motivating people, as we just talked about. Leaders focus on creating a sense of purpose, their direction, their emphasis on long-term strategies and change. And I would definitely say leaders are visionary people. Managers tend to focus on exact tasks, purpose, activities, specific goals and objectives. So just bear that in mind, that there are two different behaviours there. Number two, we're looking at approaches or approach to people. Leaders often adopt a more holistic approach. They build relationships, they look at nurturing, they're very positive, where managers, again, are very focused on task-orientated outcomes. So very focused on getting bits done and don't necessarily look at this long-term talent and nurturing that talent. And it very well may be the fact that within your organisation, you can identify whether your leaders or managers are leaders or managers. And I would probably argue or suggest that in some of the homes that I've been into, they've had directors of operations who are very much in a strategic leadership role, but actually are managing people rather than leading people. And if we look at the pros and cons of this, if leaders lead, they create this opportunity for innovation. They create this opportunity of freedom. They create this opportunity to inspire people to achieve their best versions of themselves and to take responsibility. So it's a really empowering role for leaders to motivate people. If a leader manages people, it will feel very suffocating. It will feel that you're being undermined. It will feel that you don't have authority within your role. And therefore, if you feel that that's the situation, I would then be arguing or debating or suggesting, I talk about it in an academic term, not in a I'm just going to argue with you term. I would suggest and argue that that is you being managed rather than led. And if somebody who is above you in an organisation is actually in a leadership role, but you feel managed by them, perhaps it's time to have a discussion around how the best way to get things out of you would be. Because ultimately at level 5, as a registered manager, you are responsible for everything within your registration. So you have to have the power and the authority and the autonomy to perform your role. And failing to give that will definitely not provide you focus. It definitely won't allow you to be innovative around change. It won't allow you to problem solve, because you will simply feel suffocated within that role. And that's important for you as registered managers because that's from up coming down. But just remember where you are in the chain, you're here going down as well. So you are meant to be inspiring your next workforce of team leaders, deputy managers, clinicians into that leadership role as well. So whatever you're feeling, be mindful that your team might be feeling the same. And therefore, you might find that when you come to the research unit towards the end of this qualification, this is a great thing to carry research out on, to ask people's opinions and values and thoughts about what they think about the leadership team. Because when we look at CQC, it is about leading safe, effective and well-led care, not managing safe, effective and well-led care. So just be mindful that these theories hold a value within health and social care, and it's definitely worthwhile thinking about that moving forward. Equally, we can see here different models between leadership and management around change. We can see differences around visions. We can see differences about innovation and creativity, and we can see differences between relationships and change models. So it is very much a key role for you as a registered manager to understand your roles and responsibilities. And just because you hold the title registered manager does not mean that you can't be a leader within that as well, because the registered manager's role isn't just the case of saying, I'm a registered manager and you're boxed in to those behaviours, because ultimately I would suggest the managers that have the best outcomes are strong leaders and not managers, which kind of sounds a bit contradictory to the fact that you're doing leadership and management in care. However, what I would say is if you want to, you can register, and I'm sure you can, I will double check, but I'm absolutely sure you can, because you're a student on a management qualification. You can register as a student with the Institute for Leadership on a level 5, or the Institute for the CMI, Chartered Institute for Management, and you can sign up as a student to a professional organisation and gain membership, because there is value in accepting professional standards and working within those professional standards, and they give you some very clear definitions. Equally, you'll get access to publications, websites and journals and stuff like that. So it's a great thing to do. We can talk about that. If you want to know more, just ask me and I'll send you some stuff over. I probably should be on an affiliate program with them, but I don't obviously recommend one over above the other. But I do recommend joining. I'm a fellow with the Institute for Leadership because at the time they were the Institute for Leadership and Management. I quite like the fact that they dropped the management part and become the Institute for Leadership, because I think we should be aspiring to be the best version of ourselves, and it's leadership that allows us to be the best version of ourselves. But again, we could probably debate that. It's horses for courses. There are definitely places for both. I digress. 1.3 then, we need to describe how theoretical models of leadership are applied to your own practice. So thinking about 1.1 and 1.2, thinking about you within your service, what I want you to do here is just think about how these relevant theories play out within your role. So when we look at identifying relevant theories, here you can identify your leadership and management theories. Think about transformational, transactional, for example, and then consider how those transformational leaderships play out within health and social care, and looking at then your quality management systems and processes, because again, leaders will tend to find those audit tools quite restraining in some ways, but managers love them because they're very black and white. Understand your context, so analyze your organizational goals. So again, if we go back to leaders and managers, a leader will look at the vision of an organization, the culture of the organization, the mission statement of the organization, and they will be able to influence change within that process, where a manager will follow that. And it may be the fact that as a registered manager, you are going to be responsible for your statement of purpose and your service user guide. So therefore, if you make recommendations to change, you need to make sure that you're meeting regulatory requirements. So you update it and let CQC know. But if you do go down the road of looking at your mission statements, your values, your culture, and your behaviours as an organisation, what I want to know is why and how. What is it that you're going to do? How are you going to make sure that stakeholders and everyone involved in that process can set that vision? Because what we know through theoretical models is, if we want to influence the best change, doing that in a collaborative way works more successfully than necessarily through a dictatorship way. So a very democratic approach over a dictatorship approach there. Obviously, setting clear objectives differ between leaderships and managers. Setting clear objectives, your key business indicators, your key performance indicators, will align with your missions, values, cultures, and behaviours. So when you sit down and you look at your job description, does that marry up to the home's visions, values, missions, and statements? When you set targets for others, do they all align? Because if they don't, then we're not cohesive in the way forward. It means we have some very different ways of working. And actually, that's not helpful, because it doesn't show consistency through your organization. So it's useful for you to identify them, and it's useful for you to discuss them and make sure that you are being standardized and cohesive across your organization. Because where I've seen systems fail quite quickly is where you've got people having very clear visions and values to move the organization forward, and then you have resistance for change because people haven't been brought on the same journey. And it's a bit like therapy in some ways, your visions, values, and missions, which is you're all on a train, all going towards the same direction. And in therapy, we never stop the train. We want to get to the end, because if we don't get to the end, it can cause problems. What tends to happen here is everyone's on the train, but it doesn't necessarily mean they stay on the train to the end journey. People are getting off at different stops. And that causes a collision at some point. It causes people to drift and not be in that same process. I'm trying to give you a better metaphor, but that's where it works. So just think about setting those clear objectives, the ownership of them, how you're aligning them to your business plans, how you're aligning them to CQC. Because ultimately, somebody will say to you, why are we doing this? And what you want is a very clear rationale behind why. I think obviously being open to criticism, being adaptive is a real skill set. We don't need to feel insecure within our role. You know, at the end of the day, you are doing this qualification, you are working at a level 5 standard, which is your second year of a degree. You're being recognised by CQC. You have a huge amount of trust and responsibility being placed at your door. You don't need to feel insecure about that. You're doing this because you've been identified as somebody that has that potential to be trusted and to hold responsibility. So you've got good ethical standards, you're a person of good character, you've got good morals, you know, you're working towards those ethical theories of being virtuous and all of the other behavior stuff that goes alongside it. So be open to criticism, be open to being adapted, be open to listening to everything that's going on. Communicate and collaborate clearly, so have your team meetings, make sure that your Shannon and Weaver theories are in place, your center and your C from your decoder, make sure that's all working. Think about your learning and development strategies, so think about the hot topic that I've just done, so have a look on YouTube, find that one about creating a culture of positive learning. Problem solving is a great skill set, so being able to critically problem solve, is a key thing here. Understanding problem solving and the cycle of change, really important. And then conversely, monitoring, evaluating, adapting to change, and carrying out reflections. Now, when you discuss this in your questions later, you don't need to cover all of this. Just pick the ones that's relevant to you that you can reflect upon. 1.4 then looks for you to explain potential conflicts that may occur when applying theoretical models of change, or models of learning and management. So when we think about the change model, we've got resistance to change, and that's because I think there's three types of people here. You've got those that are on board with change. I think it's a great idea, and that's because they hold the values of continual quality improving. Easy to spot that as a business behavior. It's easy to spot the person that thinks being outstanding is the benchmark. That's where you need to be, because if we're all on that train journey trying to achieve it and we miss it, then we may be good with outstanding features. But if we get off the station at good, we've got a problem, because actually we may not meet that, and therefore your service starts to slip back. So that's resistance to change. So the person that's supporting you is the one that sees those visions and values really clearly, and that's because you've communicated it clearly. Your goals, your outcomes are very clear. So for them, they've got it. You've then got what I like to call, and it's not a scientific term, it's just my years of experience, the negative Nelly. I've been doing this job for 20 years. You don't need to do it like that. You need to do it like this. I know best, blah, 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 blah. And the problem with those people, they're quite toxic. They will wait for something to fail, and then they will just talk about it, and obviously cause other people to think, and it's very easy to manipulate people. As I say to people in those situations, a broken clock's right twice a day. It doesn't mean that you're right. It's just that it's come round and that's the situation. And I love those people, because they're your grenade throwers. They're the ones that throw in all of the problems. So if you're in a situation and you're managing those potential people, I always say to them, it's very easy to sit there and be negative. It's very easy to sit there and throw a grenade. What's more constructive is coming up with why don't you think that will work, or how is a better way of working, because ultimately we're on this quality improvement cycle for change. We can't stay still. And then finally, you've got the ones sitting on the fence, and the ones sitting on the fence are the ones that will sway either way when the argument is either winning or losing. So your best bet, get the people that are going to be on your side straight away. Look at the ones that normally sit on the fence and get those people that are on your side to win them around quickly. And then hopefully what happens is you have more support in the room to implement that change. But equally, I think what's really important here is setting proper expectations for change, because what tends to happen is you've got your carer or your person that's been in the organisation for a long period of time going, oh, that doesn't work, that's not going to work. They give it a week, told you that's not going to work. And you're like, well, it's not going to work because the change cycle takes at least 6 months. We've got behaviours to change, we've got values to change, we've got thinking to change. That doesn't happen overnight. And then we've got to learn from our mistakes. We've got to adapt and evolve the service. So sometimes getting people to understand the change cycle is fundamentally important, because when you've then got your negative Nellies going, that failed, you can say, no, it hasn't failed. We just have found a way how not to do something. We're still on the same journey. We're still on the same outcome. And I want to say the metaphor there is Edison with his light bulb. He's like 4,000 ways of it not working, but he only found the one when it did. So look at your resistance to change and just think about how that works. As we go through here, you've got your organizational cultures, you've got implementing change cycles, you've got your resources, your priorities, your lack of buy-in, communication breakdown. So these are all of the things that causes the change cycle to fail, and including ethical dilemmas where people have got their own values and feelings and thoughts on certain things. So think about an example of a time when you've wanted to change something. Think about what went wrong and why it went wrong, and think about how how you can be sure that when you want to implement a change or a new system, that you're going to look at a strategic way of moving that forward rather than being impulsive and doing all that lot. And again, you can see on there, look, unrealistic expectations. It takes time, you know. The one that I particularly love is from the managers, and I was guilty for it too. Very simple problem. People's putting people's clothes away in the wrong place. Now, it still happens to this day. It was happening 25 years ago. Margaret's wearing Barbara's top. Family get upset. They write a complaint. It goes in. You sit down with your team. You write a clear policy. You put up a staff notice. You talk about it in handover. You have the staff notice, and it still happens. Well, of course, it's still going to happen because it's a behaviour. Somebody somewhere isn't either reading the labels, or somebody somewhere is rushing, or there's 100 reasons why that happens. And if you find the way for it to never happen, you need to coin that, because that's going to be an absolute game changer in social care. Because unfortunately, if there's ever room for human error, it seems to happen. So, of course, what happens is you do all of this, and then Negative Nelly sits and goes, told you it's not going to work. Well, it's not going to work because there are so many sliding factors here. It's unrealistic to say, I never want that to happen again in certain situations. You know, drug errors. It's unrealistic to say you're not to make an error ever again. We're humans. We're going to make mistakes. Of course, what we need to be doing is that culture of being open, honest, and learning from them. And what we want to see isn't necessarily, well, it'd be lovely to see it never happening, but not to see that it never happens, but to see that a reduction has taken place with errors because of the systems. But if we set the unrealistic expectation, what basically happens is people then go, well, there's no point. It doesn't work. I give up anyway. So, of course, that then affects morale and all of that lot. So just think about next time when you want to implement or say something, that you're saying it in a constructive manner, which doesn't undermine people, but looks at a positive solution without being unrealistic in its outcome. So 1.5 looks at strategies to address those potential conflicts, applying those theories and models. Again, around leadership and different management. So leaders being much more inspirational, thinking about innovation, policy change, culture change, behavior change, and managers following processes. So think about which one you want to be here. But here's some clear strategies, you know, clearer communication. Great. We all know clear communication is the way forward. But what does clear communication look like? Because we've all been in the situation as leaders and managers when we've run care services and we've written that notice and we thought, absolutely can't be misinterpreted. 2 minutes later, they're doing exactly what you've asked them not to do. Why? Oh, I didn't think that note applied to me. Oh, I didn't read the note. Oh, I thought it meant this. So even when we think we're being clear, we're probably not. So think about your communication strategies. Think about how you can reduce error. Think about how you can reduce this miscommunication, misunderstanding. Stakeholder involvement, absolutely. Sometimes you need more support in decision making. You need to be seen to be a combined unit. Some people love to divide and conquer in leadership. They like to go work you in, make you feel that what you're saying isn't of value, so they go over your head and all this stuff. But if you are in a good cultured home, in a good cultured workplace, that shouldn't happen, because you should be respected for the position you're in, and vice versa. So if you see division and people know that they can divide homes, I generally see it in homes that are poor to requires improvement. Generally, staff who've been there a long time are able to manipulate services for their interest, not the interest of the people they're looking after. And what I tend to find here as well is it's the noisemakers, the one making the most amount of noise, the ones that you have to watch in the first instance. So, customization, training, change management, gradual implementation, piece by piece, conflict resolution mechanisms. So looking at how we diffuse stuff and learn from it and process. And there's lots of others on there to have a look at. Again, feedback loops and performance management systems. So just have a think about what it is you can do and the strategies is in your leadership team to kind of manage those potential conflicts in which you're going to face. And then ultimately, you then need to analyze a range of different leadership styles. So you've got those here. You've got your autocratic leadership. So looking at communication from top to bottom, limited input, to your democratic, involving people, transformational, transactional, your servant leader, laissez-faire, charismatic. The one that's not on there, which I'd like you to have a look at, is the not inspirational leader, the inclusive leader. There we go. So the one that's not on there is the inclusive leader. So have a look at the inclusive leader. Because the inclusive leader is somebody that has the ability to be a bit of everything. They can adapt to the current situations. And I actually think, all of these leadership styles have their strengths and limitations, where an inclusive leader is this balanced person. Now, there's lots of different models you can do online. There's lots of different questionnaires you can do. It says, this is the type of leader you are. So if you want to find out the type of leader you are, just Google what type of leader am I, and you do some questionnaires, it'll tell you. But you should be able to read this and go, I'm that one. But what I would suggest is that you should be kind of a stagger, you should have like a stagger profile. You should be a bit of everything, because there are absolute times to be democratic, to win everyone round, to give everyone a voice. So there's absolute times when you have to show authority and say, no, hang on a minute, we are doing this. Because ultimately, it is your registration. You are the one that is responsible for the final decision. So, and people have to understand that whilst you are in a position of trust and authority, it is you that is prosecuted. It is you that is accountable to CQC. So therefore, the decision lies with you. Nobody else. It lies with you. And if you are being undermined in that decision, you have to decide, is this a safe environment for me to be in? Do I have the authority to perform my role? Because it becomes a real safeguarding concern. That's not to say, and I'm not endorsing at this point, that you become a dictator leader. It is absolutely the point that you can use all of them. What I'm suggesting is sometimes you have to put your foot down. And that might be because of legislation, that might be because of safeguarding, that may be because you have a better understanding of holistic risk than somebody else. So just bear that in mind. Just justify why you do what you do. 1.7 then looks at you explaining how coaching and mentoring can be used to complement leadership styles. So again, looking at some of these, you can see here, if you look at the autocratic leadership, coaching and mentoring can be a useful supplement to the autocratic leadership by helping team members improve their skills, gain more independence. So thinking about your leadership style, just looking at how you can best use that to get the most out of people, because whether we like it or not, in a registered manager position, you are a person of multiple hats. You are up and foremost to the top, responsible for the service. You are accountable to CQC, you're accountable to local authorities, you're accountable to the families, you're accountable to the service users, and again, your staff. You are a coach and a mentor, you are a supportive ear, you are a teacher, you're all of these things, you're a nurse, you do all of these skills. But just think about, in different situations, this inclusive leadership bit that I was talking about allows you to be a chameleon, to adapt to those roles. So just think about that there. So your first written account or your first essay here is to discuss the dimensions of effective leadership and management within context of your care service. You need to address the learning outcomes below, and you need to analyse fundamental theories as a bedrock of successful leadership and management practices, and align that to 1.1 down to 1.7. It is essential that this essay undertakes and explores leadership management, looking through theoretical theories that underpin practical applications of potential conflict resolution strategies, diversity and symbolic relationships between coaching, mentorship and leaderships. This essay should have elements and showcase a comprehensive understanding of the learning outcomes. So here, what we would expect you to be doing is under new attempt, I would copy and paste this. That almost becomes your introduction. Go to new attempt. Go here, pop that in there, and then you can just plop your answers under each piece. So therefore, you're not missing anything, and you're able to answer everything. You can see you've got your word count there. So your introduction, we don't count those into your word count. So roughly 500 words, giving you about 80 or 70-ish words per outcome. So you don't need to go massively into it. And then obviously submit your assignment once you're done. Now, normally afterwards, I've given you an example answer. So here is a very short answer, giving you an idea of how to answer that assignment. It will be, when we grade, it's either competent, you've either answered all those outcomes correctly, or you're not yet competent because you haven't answered all of those points. So if you miss a point, it will be referred back to you. Good. So let's carry on then and look at explain the role of leadership and management skills in adult settings. So again, in adult care services, leadership and management skills play a critical role in ensuring effective delivery of high quality care. Leadership and management skills are essential for creating a positive, safe environment. And we know that from CQC, and if we look at the single inspection framework now, we can very much see how it's all going to play a part. So here's a list of the things in which you need to be thinking about. So first of all, your quality care delivery. So leadership management skills are essential for overseeing the day-to-day operation of high quality care. So focusing on that health and well-being of the individuals. So you need to have a bit of clinical understanding about managing health and well-being, and you need to think about how you manage those that situation. I would say 9 out of 10 homes now use technology, so whether that's AI technology or whether that's things like care planning apps where you've got your phones. But ultimately, how are you going to manage that? What does that look like? Then we've got staff motivation and development. So again, if we look at recruitment and retention, how are we maintaining those staff? How are we avoiding agency staff? How are we trying to reduce the amount of overseas workers? How do we get continuity of care? And how do we have an inspired workforce? So looking at staff motivation. And that could be things around invested in people, your rewards and recognitions, because a happy workforce is a productive workforce, which allows continuity of care. Thinking about how you communicate and collaborate on a daily basis, so sharing of information on handover, sharing of information in care planning, sharing of information around staff performance. Looking about being adaptive to change. Now, ultimately, if we use the Pastel model here, so Pastel is political, economical, social, environmental, you will see that, or people will understand that it's not you that's trying to make the change, but it is a political thing, or it's a CQC, or it's an economic thing. It's to do with money and finance. And I think sometimes when you want to win people around, just being open with people, say, look, we need to do this because CQC state, we need to do this because our policy says, we need to do this because the financial implication is. And when people understand the change, they're more likely to be on board with it because they understand the consequence of it. Obviously, problem solving and decision making. So how do you go through an analysis of problem solving, and how do you come up to decision making? What processes do you use? Do you use balance sheet scores? Do you use any theoretical frameworks or models to show how you've got to your judgments and decisions? Resource management. So again, equipment, staffing, budgeting are all of the skills that you need there. Staff training and development, it's one of the massive costs in running a care service. So again, looking at your talent, looking at how you motivate people, how are you going to remove that glass ceiling effect, how do you get people to be independent, how do you promote a positive learning culture. So again, go back to that hot topics that I did the other day. Looking at your centered care, looking at your risk management, that's all about how you're managing all of that stuff. Your risk management strategies, so think about positive risk taking, creating a culture of independence and enablement. Your continual quality improvements, so what does that look like? Who's responsible for your audits? What do your ISOs look like? How does quality assurance work? Thinking about your regulatory requirements, so your internal governance, your external governance, and then finally looking at your ethical considerations. You need to evaluate the impact of internal and external drivers. So again, if we think about where I just said earlier about Pastel, so political, economical, and changes there, you can look at how you're going to influence internal drivers such as organizational culture. That could be leadership things, so statement of purpose, service user guide, visions, values. It could very well have a change of direction in your service. So it may be the fact that you're having to get more complex service users on board because they're the service users that you've got. Maybe you're trying to fill beds, so you've got a bed block contract. Whatever it is, that will create an organizational culture. So are you target driven and bed driven, or what else is going on there? Staffing and workforce dynamics. So do you look at your talent? Do you make sure that you have the right mix on? How do you manage that? And again, going through some of these other steps there. So just thinking about those internal and external drivers. So, again, market competition, demographics, stakeholder expectations, economic factors, health reforms, and social care trends. You'll need to explain how to adapt your own leadership and styles for different situations, different teams. So this very much is the inclusive leader. So this is really bringing you into that there. So just think about a time when you may have had an opportunity to change, or you've had to change. So let's say, I don't know, you've got an audit or CQCs coming in, or something along that line. What was the situation? What did you do? How did you adapt? And how did you support your team? So we're looking for kind of a case study here, but we're looking at how you assess the situation. How did you choose that style? So where did you choose to become transformational? Did you want to be transactional? Was it just about following systems to get it done? Who were the stakeholders? What needs to be done there? Do you have flexible thinking? Is your emotional intelligence really good? Could you have flexibility? Do you expect your staff to have some level of flexibility? Are you able to understand the dynamics? One of the biggest dynamics, I think, in social care is the day shift versus the night shift. Again, however many years I've been in this, so where are we now? 23, nearly 30 years-ish. There are definitely differences between the morning shift, the afternoon shift, and that creates team dynamics, and it creates, if you have somebody that's quite toxic in the workforce, then that has a breakdown in relationships that causes lots of problems. So how do you manage that? Again, other things are about your communications, cultural sensitivity, building reputation, your relationships, and coaching and mentoring, empathy, and your emotional intelligence. So you don't have to go through all of those, but as we go through this and about you adapting your leadership style and how you need to respond in different situations, we need to see that you can adapt your own leadership. And again, the way that you talk to a CQC inspector is definitely going to be different to how you manage family members or your own leadership team. So describe the interaction between own leadership style, behaviors, and the values and culture of your organization. So this is the bit where we have to have done the piece before, which is a review of your own mission statement, values and cultures, because for us to thrive and strive, we have to find the alignment. We have to feel that this is the right organization for us and that our belief system aligns to the belief system that we're working with. And if we do that, we align. And if we align, it's very easy to work in that organization because you're on the same page. Where if it differs for whatever reason, it will become quite draining for you. You'll have burnout, you won't enjoy it, that job satisfaction is not going to be there, and that's going to cause you some problems. So just think about your own leadership styles, revisit your home's mission statements, values, and look at the culture in which your home has, and decide, is that a culture that reflects your leadership style? Because I can quite honestly tell you now, in all of the homes that I go into, I can pick up incredibly quickly when the culture of the home has a positive culture, because it is seen through the staff's behaviour. And again, it is the natural behaviour that we're looking at. It's not this, I'm behaving because I'm being watched by an inspector, but actual proper culture. And I see it all the time. I see carers who are naturally empathetic and kind and caring, who would see something on the floor, pick it up, pop it on the service user's lap, tap them on their leg, give them a little cuddle, offer them a cup of tea or something. So you can see the acts of kindness to those that are doing it because they're being watched. Because you know full well, if you weren't watching them, they would have just carried on. And that's generally, when I go into homes, you've got maybe somebody in a room shouting out, help, 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 or they've pushed the bell. And you can see 2 or 3 carers just walk past and nobody's popped their head around and said, look, you know, I'm sorry, you know, let's say, I'm sorry, Mary, I can see you're upset and distressed. Somebody will come shortly. Because it takes 2 seconds for those acts of kindness. And that's kind of that culture in which we want. And most managers, I have to say, are very good at that. They are very service user led. So think about the role modeling, think about how you create that, looking at engagement, looking at those values and how you implement that across your organisation is key. You need to analyse the importance of leadership styles of professional development in adult care. So again, looking at the professional development. So here, I go back to, if you sign up with the Chartered of Institute for Management or the Institute for Leadership or Leadership now, you will see a set of ethical standards. And I think that's great because you align yourself to a professional practice. But some of the things here that we can look at that just ooze professionalism within leadership is going to be things like how you role model, how you skills develop people, how you promote autonomy or empowerment, how you use feedback, how you provide those learning opportunities, how you are adaptive, how you can be innovative, how you can provide career pathways for the carers, because that's about your recruitment and retention, how you communicate effectively. I think one of the best communicators I saw recently was Stephen Fry on a video on Facebook. Not that I'm a fan of Facebook. And his grasp of the English language and his pace and his tone and the journey in which he brings you on is just fantastic. And I always thought, God, if I could have been that person, that would just be brilliant, because those communication skills is what wins you around. It's what allows you to thrive and strive, and obviously the language in which we use, you know. So ensuring that we don't swear, ensuring that we remain professional, ensuring that we use appropriate language, which is supportive and encouraging. Again, resilience, absolutely, for professional development. How do you maintain your resilience? Where do you go? And again, what are your ethics? When we talk about a person of good character, where does that come from? 2.6 is about establishing a culture of continual learning. So again, I know I've already said this, the video that I've done absolutely says this, but again, you can see a way of promoting this is about the leadership values from the top. So does the leadership see the value of learning opportunities, Do you have clear expectations? Have you got a clear teacher learning strategy? Do you have mentoring and coaching? Do you have the learning resources? Do you do reflective practice and supervision and learning opportunities from mistakes? Do you do recognitions and rewards? Do you do real world applications, so experiential learning? Do you allow the staff to problem solve? Do you look at adapting to change and continual quality improvements and empowering of confidence? Can you, in your team meetings, provide opportunities for team collaborations? And do you promote that client-centered care and innovation and creativity? And all of that works towards this culture of continual learning. So now, very much like you've just done before, you're going to start your assignment here. You're going to examine the dynamics of leadership and management in the realms of adult social care. You'll encompass a range of essential topics. You'll delve into the multifaceted roles of leadership and management in the context as outlined in 2.1 down to 2.6. In conclusion, this essay needs to encompass a comprehensive exploration of leadership and management in adult care, looking at your roles, adaptability, impact, relationships, and organizational change and cultures. And again, I've given you an example of what that looks like. So we're not going for war and peace. So moving on then, I've given you some reading books and websites and other things to look at, and some really useful stuff there to have a look at. So let me just double check that. Where are we at? Ah, no, that's where we're at. I thought that was weird while we're reading this. So ultimately, we've gone through Unit 1, which is looking at leadership and management in adult care. You've then got 2 essays to do here and here. They're only short assignments, no more than 500 words. We've gone through all of that. We've briefly overviewed and talked about what we're kind of looking for within each of those areas. You've got your theme books here to have a look at. And again, your recordings here, your books here, and we will be creating a PowerPoint series as well, which will then fall under there for you as well. So what I want you to do now is stop this recording, go online, get that work done this week, because this is quite a fast-paced qualification. You've got a week to get those assignments done. When you submit them, you'll get your feedback online within 5 working days, because you should be then working towards your next modules. So I wish you all the best of luck. If you need any support, please don't hesitate to contact me, because that's what I'm here for. Hopefully you found that useful as an overview of Unit 1, looking at leadership and management in adult care. Great. Well, take care, everyone. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.